Okay, so we were talking about alpha beta pruning and we'll continue talking about alpha beta pruning. So we can see here that if we look at this particular figure, okay, for this particular figure which we are talking over here, the value of the two nodes we are talking about here, x and y, uh, uh, in the second ply or the second subtree doesn't really matter. Okay, so you can prune those leaves. So when you prune leaves, you find that you're able to go deeper into the tree. So the principle that you're using is like this. If you consider a node n in the tree, okay, something like this. If you consider a node n in the tree, such that the player has a choice of moving to that node. If the player has a better choice M, either at the parent level or further up, okay, then N will never be reached in actual play. So you can just prune it. So that's the basic idea. So usually what is done is you have two parameters alpha and beta. So what are these alpha and beta? Alpha is the value of the best choice we have found so far at any choice point along the path for max. And beta is the value of the best choice we have found so far for on the path for min, right? And it keeps updating the values of alpha and beta as you go along. Effectiveness depends on the order of the particular nodes that you have, right? So suppose the nodes are ordered in such a way that the best successor that you have is the last one, okay, then you won't be able to prune anything, okay. So the best is if you are able to get the best successor first, then you can prune all the rest. So how is it that this can be done? So for example, if we take this particular thing we have here, if we take this this D over here, if 2 had been generated first before 14 and 5, then it would have been possible to prune these two nodes, right? So the order in which the nodes are generated also makes a difference. So can we do anything about generating the proper nodes first? So suppose we are able to do that and we are able to examine um, only order of b to the m by 2 nodes instead of order of b to the m. Okay, so usually we in Minimax we'll have to do order of b to the m number of nodes. So, but if we can examine only order of b to the m by 2 nodes, it means that the effective branching factor becomes root b instead of b. Okay, so we saw what effective branching factor is in the previous session. So what happens is for chess where we have B to be around 35, the effective branching factor will be about 6. So that makes a lot of difference basically. So you can go twice as deep as in Minimax. If you have alpha beta, then you can go twice as deep and get more exact results. For example, if you are playing chess, you can play a better quality of chess because you are able to go deeper into the tree for the same amount of time. Okay, so um, the max player needs to make a move in the time that is allotted. You can't go beyond that time. So in that particular allotted time, you can go deeper into the search tree, giving a better result basically. If the successes are examined in random order rather than best first, the total number of nodes would examined would be order of b to the 3m by 4. Okay, so this is what you find. If you are using alpha beta pruning, you'll find sometimes the pruning is possible, sometimes it is not possible. So the number of nodes that you will be examining is order of b to the 3m by 4 basically. So what are the ways in which you can order, how can you order these nodes, right? So what they do is they see the type of move that is made, right? And they make use of that. For example, you first try captures first, okay, the type of move. If it's a move which captures something, that you try first. Then threats, that use threats as the second type of move. And the third one will be like forward moves and then backward moves, etc. So you can use this particular order. So if you use such an order, you will find that you're within a factor of 2 of the best case. That's what they say. Which is good enough, right? You're with a very simple tactic, you're able to see how to do the ordering. Another is that you see what are the previous moves. Okay. The past could be the previous move. So in the previous move, you see what had happened at this current node, right? And you can make use of that. What was the order in the previous mode and which turned out to be a threat, which turned out to be a forward move, which turned out to be pruned, etc. Right? So you can use that. Another way of gaining in the information is to use iterative deepening. Okay, first what you do, you search one ply deep. So when you search one ply, you record the best path or the best moves, right? And then what you do is you search for one ply deeper, but you order the nodes according to what you have done in the earlier with just one ply deep. So the best moves are called the killer moves, and you have what is called the killer move heuristic. I don't know much about chess, but this is some words which they use or some definitions which they basically have. Okay, another thing they do is what is called the transposition table. So what happens is that if white makes a move A1 and black makes a move B1 and then white makes a move A2 somewhere else and black makes a move B2, then you get the sequence A1 B1 A2 B2. If you transpose it and first do A2 B2 and then do A1 B1, it gives the same result as A1 B1 A2 B2. So what they do is that they store, for example, if they do A1 B1 A2 B2, for A2 B2 A1 B1 they store the same result, and you store it in a hash table, okay, which is known as transposition table. And the transposition table, um, if you use a transposition table, you may be able to double the reachable search depth in chess or somewhere close to that, right? So what happens is some of these you have to keep. You may not be able to keep everything, okay, because you may be evaluating millions of nodes and it may be difficult to keep the whole thing in the transposition table, but it may be possible to keep some of them, and that may help you to increase the speed. Okay, the minimax and alpha beta algorithms have to search all the way to the terminal states, right? But what do? You, in the case of chess, etc., you use what is called imperfect decisions. So what you do is you decide up to how much depth you're going. And after deciding up to how much depth you're going, you evaluate those nodes, right? And then you back it up. So what you get is heuristics minimax here. Okay, so it's not actually the evaluation of utility, which is called the utility of S, where S is a terminal node, but it's a cutoff test. You have decided you're going up to a particular cutoff. So when you go to that cutoff, you do the evaluation, and this is backed up by what is called the H minimax, which is just like the minimax that we used, except that you're using the evaluation instead of the utility. And the terminal test can be replaced by a cutoff test. So we can see what this cutoff test is. One way is actually to decide up to what depth you're going. Any nodes which come after that depth will be called, we will be giving, when you use a cutoff test, it will give it as true. Okay. So that is the cutoff test. So when you're using a cutoff test, then you have a configuration and you need to evaluate that configuration. Okay, so how do you go about evaluating the particular configuration? So the performance of your program depends on that evaluation function. That evaluation function is very important, right? And if it is inaccurate, then the game will not be able to play well. So let us look at the characteristics of a good evaluation function basically. The evaluation function should order the terminal states in the same way as the true utility function. Okay, that is, states that are wins must evaluate better than those that draw, etc. Okay, and the computation must not take too long because you have limited time, right? You cannot use a lot of time for the computation. And the evaluation must be strongly correlated with the actual chances of winning. From this, if I move to this configuration, what are the chances of winning? Okay, so that is very important to be taken. So there are most evaluation functions use features of the state. So if you have one configuration, maybe things like what are the number of white pawns you have, what are the number of black pawns, the white queens, the black queen, and all the other things. Maybe number of the position of the king, overall material advantage. All these things can be taken as features of a state. So you can have various categories. For example, you have 2 pawn endgames, 1 pawn endgame, etc. So how do you go about doing this? The evaluation function, you need to actually make it run for a number of experiments and see what will happen. So suppose our experience suggests that 72% of the states encountered in the 2 pawn versus 1 pawn category lead to a win, 20% to a loss, and 8% to a draw. Then a reasonable evaluation for states is like 0.72 into 1 into point plus 0.2 into 0. So what you're doing is that you're giving 1, 0 and half to whether it's going to be a draw or a win or whatever, right? Or a loss. So in this way, you can find a reasonable evaluation function by using this as your weight, basically, as the value you're going to use. So what you do here is that you have various features F1s, F2s, F3s, etc. And you can say what is the worth of a piece. Okay, so this can be done by some type of experience. You can say that each pawn is worth 1. In other words, you are giving it a weight of 1. And a knight or a bishop is given a weight of 3. A rook has a weight of 5 and the queen has a weight of 9. Okay. So what you do is if you have features F1s, F2s, etc. So F1 is a feature of a particular position. Maybe F1 is something like number of pawns or some such thing, right? And you have the weights W1, W2, etc. And you can set these weights according to your intuition, right? So anything which is considers, say, the number of pawns can be given a weightage of 1. If it is something to do with the queen, then you give it a weightage of 9. If it is something to do with the rook, you give it a weightage of 5, etc. So this is one way of doing the evaluation function, right? So the features and weights come from centuries of human chess playing experience. So you can either do it from experience or you can estimate it using machine learning techniques. So you use some old games which were played, etc., and use machine learning techniques to come up with the estimates. Okay, so like we said, iterative deepening can also be used with move with ordering, and there are some more things, sophisticated cutoff tests. For example, if you are going to cut off at a particular point, and that point is not a quiescent position. What do you mean by quiescent position? It's a position which is stable. Okay, so if you have a position n where there are wild swings in the values it takes, then what you do is you go down a little bit further till you reach a position which is stable. Okay, so that is what is called the quiescence search. So these are all some things which are found to work well with games like chess. Then you have what is called the horizon effect. So what is this horizon effect? Suppose the opponent makes a move and that move is leaves you in a serious condition, right? Like you're almost lost or some such thing. So what you can do is you can use some some delaying tactics at that particular point in time. So that is what you mean by the horizon effect. So you use what is called the singular extension. So that is a move which is clearly better than all the other moves. So you have a number of moves which are possible. You use the best possible move at that particular point in time. Okay, it's also possible to do forward pruning. So what you do is that if you find that some particular nodes have a very bad evaluation and it's not likely to reach to a win, then you can cut off those uh, particular branches. And one approach to forward pruning is what is called the beam search. On each ply, consider only beam of the n best moves, right? So you choose some particular n and you say you're only going to choose so many best moves and leave out all the other moves. But like they say, it's possible that the best move, even though your evaluation gives that, there is no guarantee that the best move has not been pruned away, right? Which makes it difficult. Another is what is called the probabilistic cut. Okay, so like alpha beta search prunes nodes that are provably outside the alpha beta window. But in the case of prob cut, it's probably outside the window, not provably outside the window. So it checks the probability of nodes which are outside that window and it deletes those, right? And of course, in such a case, in the case of alpha beta, you're sure that the nodes are outside the window, whereas here it's only a probability that you're basing it on. But it is found that in many games, you do get a good outcome by doing this. So what you can do is you can combine all the different techniques that I spoke of, right? And try to play chess. So what you do is you have a cutoff test with a quiescence search, a large transposition table. We can generate and evaluate millions of nodes per second. Okay. So what happens is you find that if you use minimax search, okay, since you have a branching factor of 35, and if you take say 5 plies, you find about 50 million nodes. So you will be able to only go look about 5 ply more, right? But if you use alpha beta search, you may be able to go up to 10 ply, making it give better result. Okay, and using additional pruning techniques, etc., which we spoke of, you can go up to 14 plies. Yeah, so when the computer game has to reach grandmaster status, you also have what are called the opening and end moves, right? So opening and end moves are generally used there. So what are these opening and end moves? You have what is called a table lookup. Okay. So at the start, you find that the number of possible moves are somewhat small. So at that time, you can have some predictable moves. So if you can say if this is the configuration, then you move this. If this is the configuration, then you move this. You can have a table lookup. Okay. So what they do is the best advice of human experts on how to play each opening is copied and entered into the computer for use. So you have a database and it uses that for finding the opening sequence of moves. But what happens is after around 10 moves, then you find that it needs to switch from the table lookup to the search. The table lookup is no more going to work on that, right? And again, towards the end of the game, you find there are fewer possible positions, and again, you can do a table lookup. So, here the computer analysis of endgames is done. So, so you have a policy where it says if this is your particular configuration, then this is the possible move that you can make. So, you can have again have a table lookup. And it is found that all chess endgames have been solved up to 7 pieces, up to the last 7 pieces. You can have use the chess endgames and they are available on the internet, which can be used like a table lookup basically. Okay, next so all these different techniques can be used to make the games better and the idea was to get a grandmaster status for the computer program. So they have used a number of different techniques to do that. Another type of game we need to see is what are called the stochastic games. So here what happens is there may be some unforeseen situations which you need to take into account. For example, if you take backgammon, you also have some luck also involved in it. So you have a dice roll. Okay, so you have two dice and you need to roll the dice, and depending on what you get in the dice, it decides what are the legal moves that are possible for you. So what happens here is the white knows what are his or her own legal moves are because he has just rolled the dice, but you don't know what the black is going to roll. Okay, so it brings on more uncertainty over here. And it cannot be constructed just like the chess and the tic-tac-toe. So what you do is you use what are known as the chance nodes, which will tell you what happens when you roll the dice. So you can see here, you have these circles over here, which are the chance nodes. So if you take the max player, he's going to roll the die, and depending on what you get in the die, in the two dice that you have, okay. For example, you can get 1 1, you can get 1 2, 1 in this, 2 in this, in the second die, or you can get 1 3, etc. Or you can get 2 1, 2 2. So many are possible. So each of these has an equal probability, right? So here you have the different moves that are possible. Okay, so in the chance node, if you take the chance node, the different moves that are possible are 1 1, 1 2, etc. So you have, if you look at that, you have six in the first die and 6 in the second die. So altogether you have 36 possibilities. So if we take things like 1 1, 2 2, 3 3, etc., they all have a probability of 1 by 36, and 1 2, okay, has a probability of 1 by 18, and 2 1 will have a probability of 1 by 18, etc. So all these have a probability, and this would be your game tree that you're getting in this particular game, right? So what you do is that if you come to terminal node, you can find the utility of the node, just like we spoke in the other cases, right? And if you consider other states, okay, you can use the same maximum and minimum result that we have, right? And in the case of chance nodes, you are going to use this particular thing. So you are going to have a summation of the probability of each of those different edges that you have into the minimax value which you have over there. Okay. For example, here if you want to find the value of this node, you have to take sigma of the probability of each of these nodes into the utility you have at this node or the evaluation you have at this node, and that will give you the value of this node. Okay, so what happens is that because you are using probability etc., you will be getting some expected value at that particular point. So one thing you have to notice here is that they all should be of the same order. Like you can't have some utilities being 1, 2, 3, etc., and some so much difference in the utilities like 130, 20, 400, etc. Then you find there may be an error in the result that you're going to get. So what happens here is that what the minimax does in order of b to the m, here it will do of the order of b to the m into n to the m, where n is the number of distinct roles that you have. So what you find is you won't be able to go to the same type of depth like you went for the minimax as in the case of expectee minimax like we are having over here. Okay. So what you find is in backgammon, n is 21 and b is around 20, right? But what happens is in some cases the b can be very high, right? So what happens is that you cannot go too much. You can go only up to 3 ply. If alpha beta pruning can also be applied here. So for that, what you need to do is you need to say that these values which you are getting here are sort of in a range. For example, if you say that it is in range -2 to +2, etc., then you can use some type of pruning. Otherwise, it will be difficult to use a pruning over here. Another way is what is called the Monte Carlo simulation, where you do for a number of thousands of games, make it play against itself using random dice rolls. Okay. And looking at the win percentage, you use that as an approximation of the value of that position. Even if the algorithm has an imperfect heuristic and is searching only a few ply, right? So this is what is known as the rollout, a simulation of this type, which is used to help you to get better evaluation, basically. Okay, so this is some topics which we have not really covered, and that is things like partially observable games. Okay, we have not worked on those type of things. There are other game programs which we have not worked on, and you have other alternatives to Minimax which we haven't really worked on. So we have got a sort of a bird's eye view of what are the techniques that can be used for game playing programs. So with this, we will end this session here. Thank you.